everyone, welcome to Jolly Molly TV. Today we're going to do another fun block in Kimberbell's Quilting Through the Seasons ladder quilt project. Today we're going to work on this block right here, which is called stripe number 2. So go ahead and get your plastic pouch system that you've labeled stripe 2, and let's head over to the machine and let's get started stitching. I also want to give a huge shout out. Again, thank you so much to My Girlfriend's Quilt Shop for sponsoring me and sending me the CD, the embellishments, and the fabric kit in order so that I can show you how to make this project. If you still need some of these supplies for this project, please visit My Girlfriend's Quilt Shop using the link down below and help me give them a big thanks for supporting me and enabling me to make this video series for you. Huge thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, My Girlfriend's Quilt Shop. So now we're at the machine and ready to work on the block called stripes number 2. All right, I've got a bobbin with white thread down below. I have my 8x8" hoop on the machine, and I have a piece of the poly no-show mesh stabilizer in it. I have white thread in the top of my machine. Now let's go to the screen cam and let's load the design. All right, we're going to go to embroidery. We're going to go to the flash drive, and we're going to go to Quilting Through the Seasons, and I need to go to the quilting designs first. I am looking for time, and I'm looking for a 6x6" design. Down a little bit. 6x8, 6x6. Now there's two designs. There's a horizontal and a vertical. We want the vertical. So we want it to go up and down like that. Okay? Alright, so now we're going to click set. Okay, so that brought that in center. Now I'm going to add the embroidery design on top of this. Okay, so back to Quilting Through the Seasons. I'm going to go to the main quilt, and I'm going to look for this 5x7 stripe, which is right here. Click on that. That's what we want. Click set. It's brought that in on top. You really can't see it, barely, but it's brought it in. It's centered. We don't have to do anything else to it. We click embroidery. Okay, so let's go to the hoop cam. And I've got white thread up on top. We're going to be stitching out a couple steps, and then we're going to be skipping some steps to go to actually attach the fabric. Just follow along with me, and I'll show you exactly which stitches that we're going to be skipping. But for right now, we're going to stitch the first stitch, which is a placement line for your batting. And here we go. Okay, now I want you to get out your plastic pouch system that you've labeled number 14 or stripes number 2. And I want you to pull out all of that fabric. And then we're going to set that aside off to one side here. Then you need to pull your batting, which will be your last piece. Oops. That's labeled 7x7. And we're going to use that right now. Okay, so now we're going to lay the batting down. Make sure that you've covered all of the placement lines. And we're good. Use your stylus to hold it down, and let's tack down the batting. Okay, now I want you to take the hoop off the machine, take this to a table, and I want you to trim around the outside edge and get rid of all of this excess batting. I'll meet you right back here. Okay, so that's now trimmed up. So let's go to the screen cam, and I'm going to show you now which steps we are going to be skipping. So we can't do a placement line for a large piece of fabric because we don't have a large piece of fabric. What we have are strips of fabric. So we're going to skip that step. The next is the tack down for that large piece of fabric, which we don't have. So we're going to skip that. Okay, the machine moves and now it wants to do the quilting. We're not quite ready to do the quilting yet because we don't have the strips of fabric down. So we're going to skip that step. This is now where we're going to continue stitching because now it's going to stitch a grid for the fabric strips, and that's what we want. So we want to click OK, and we're going to go back to the hoop cam, and now I'm going to leave my white thread up on top, foot down, and I'm going to stitch out that grid. Here we go. Okay, that's great. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these fabric strips in order how I'm going to be using them in this block. So the first one I'm going to use is the hatch. Put that face down. Then I'm going to do the dark gray, face down. I'm going to do the green, face down. I'm going to do the white with the gold, and then the gray with white polka dot, and then the teal. All right. So that's the order that we're going to do these strips in. So I'm going to go ahead, put those aside, and now we're going to stitch out the placement line for that first piece of fabric. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to take the hoop off the machine so I can see it a little bit better. This is piece number 1. This is piece number 2. So now I'm going to take piece number 2, flip it over, put it right side together on this long edge, and I'm going to line it up just like that. Okay, now I'm going to put that down along the placement line that we just stitched. Okay, and make sure it's like that. All right, so I've got a little bit on each edge. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and put that gently back on the machine, and you can tape this if you want. I'm a little brave and adventurous, and I'm going to do it without tape, but I'm going to use my stylus to hold it down and make sure it doesn't move. All right, put the foot down. The needle will be on the fabric, so I don't have to worry about it grabbing on the edge. And we're ready to go. So let's tack down these 2 strips. Here we go. Okay, now I'm going to flip that first piece of fabric over, and I'm going to finger press it. If you want to take this to an iron to press it, take the hoop gently off the machine, take the whole thing over to your ironing board and press it, and then bring it back. But I found that finger pressing does just as good of a job on this. If I want to finger press down here and it's off the machine bed, I'll use my hand underneath kind of as a table to do that. All right, so now again, you can tape it or just do what I do and hold it with the stylus. We're going to put the foot down and we're going to tack down this strip of fabric. Here we go. See, now your machine is moved over. So now that's its position telling me that it's ready to stitch the next piece of fabric. So before we can do that, got to take the hoop off gently, and we have to trim away this excess fabric right here. Okay, so that's trimmed away nicely. Now I want to grab the next piece of fabric, which is the green, and I'm going to flip that over, put it down right sides together. Again, line it up right with that stitch line that we just stitched, because that wasn't only the tack down line of that fabric, it was the placement line for this one. So now I'm going to use my stylus again and hold it down. Here we go. It's tacked down this green fabric. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing as we did before. We're going to flip this over and we're going to finger press, using my hand as a table for this bottom section. That looks good. Foot down, and now we're going to do the next stitch, which is tacking down this green fabric. Here we go. You got this. So the foot's jumped over, telling me it's ready to sew on the next piece of fabric. But before we can do that, we need to trim off the excess of this green fabric here. Okay, now that we've trimmed that up, I'm going to grab the next piece of fabric, which if you have the kit, is the white with the gold flecks. I'm going to turn that over right sides together, and I'm going to line it up with that last stitch line. Gently put the hoop back on, and now I'm ready to tack this down. So foot down, and let's stitch it down. Lay down, sweetheart. Down. Okay, now we're going to flip this over. Again, finger press it down there, and now we're going to put the foot down and stitch this tack down line, which will secure this strip of fabric. Here we go. Okay, so now the foot's moved over, telling me it's ready to stitch on the next piece of fabric. So before we do that, I need to trim away this excess fabric right here. Okay, now that that's trimmed up, I'm going to grab the next piece of fabric, which is the gray and the white polka dot. Again, turn that over, put it down right sides together, line it up with that previous stitch line, put the hoop back on the machine, use the stylus, and let's tack this piece of fabric down. Okay, you know what's next. Yes, flip it over, put it down, finger press it so it's nice and flat. Put the foot down, and let's tack down this piece of fabric. You got this. Okay, now the foot's moved over, telling me it's ready to attach the next piece of fabric. But before that, I need to trim away the excess of this fabric here. Okay, so now I've got that trimmed up nicely. Now I'm going to add the last piece of fabric, turn it over, place it right sides together, lining it up with that last stitch line, and we are ready to put the hoop back on, put the foot down, and let's tack down this last piece of fabric. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to flip it over, finger press it down. There we go. It's in place. Now we're going to do the next stitch, which is going to do a stitch across the top and the bottom, securing these pieces of fabric on the top and the bottom. All right, here we go. Okay, so the machine thinks it's done, but it's really not. So we're going to go back to the screen cam, and now what we're going to do is we're going to go back and stitch the remaining stitches that we need to do. So we're going to click OK. I'm going to go to the plus and minus key. This was the placement for the batting. We don't need that now. Go down one step. This was the tack down for the batting. We don't need that. Skip that step. This is the placement for a large piece of fabric. We don't need that. Skip that step. This one we're going to do. This is a tack down for a large piece of fabric, but now technically we do have a large piece of fabric on the hoop, and this will actually be our trimming line when we're all done with this. So we want to stitch this. So I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to go back to the hoop. And we're going to stitch it still in white thread. It's going to go all the way around. I'm just going to make sure on these edges that they're nice and flat when the needle comes around that edge, because these two edges are the only ones that are not secured at this point. All right, so put the foot down and let's stitch out this tack down line. Perfect. So now that will be our trim up line when we're all done with this. Now I'm going to go back to the screen cam and show you that it automatically went to the next step, which is the quilting, which is what we need to do to finish this block. We need to stitch the quilting. So it's exactly where we want it to be. I also want to give another thank you to another sponsor in this video, Kimberbell, for providing me with the quilting designs to be able to make this project absolutely amazing using their block by block quilting designs. Thank you so much, Kimberbell. And if you're interested in getting these quilting designs, please use the link in the description below and it'll take you right to it, and you can choose the bundle of the quilting designs, or you can also just get individual designs if you like it all florals or all sayings, which I believe they call time. You can choose which designs you want to put in your project. So please check out the link down below for kimberbell.com. I am going to quilt this block the same as I did the last block in the last video. I want to quilt it white because it looked really nice on all these different colors of fabric. So choose the color thread you'd like to do your quilting in, put that thread up on top, put the foot down, and let's enjoy the quilting. This is a 9-minute in real life stitch out. Here you go. That looks really nice. I love the way that text quilted out. Look at that. That's so cool. All right, so this block is done stitching. So now let's take the hoop off your machine. Let's go to the table and let's finish up this block. All right, you did it. You stitched out stripe number 2. Does that look amazing with that quilting? I love it. Okay, so now the last thing we have to do is we have to square this block up. This block is going to be 6.5 inches by 6.5 inches. And remember when we went back and we stitched that outer stitch line? That's because that's going to help us measure up and trim up this block right now. If you go from this edge to this edge, it's 6.5 inches. And if I go from the top to the bottom of that stitch line, it's 6.5 inches. So that is how we're going to trim this block up. I'm going to turn this on its side because my ruler is the width of this direction. Makes it a little bit easier. I'm going to go to that stitch line and I'm going to go just a hair past it. I can see the stitch line under my ruler and I'm going to trim off that part of the block. Okay, now I'm going to come this direction, line it up with my mat, make sure it's level. So 16 would be 10.5. Line that up with the mat, and then I can see my stitch line just underneath that ruler. And then I go and I trim her up. Okay, so that side is 6.5. Do the same thing for over here. Come to the stitch line. It's straight. I can go under. Stitch line is just under that ruler. Trim that up. Come over here. Line it up. 16, it would be 10.5. Line that up. And can I see the stitch line? Yes, it is just underneath my ruler. Trim that up. And now you have a perfectly square 6.5 by 6.5 inch block. Isn't that amazing? And look at that quilting. That is so cool. You did it. Congratulations. So I hope you had as much fun today making this block as I did. And I hope you stay tuned here on Jolly Molly TV for more fun and more blocks in Kimberbell's fun project, Quilting Through the Seasons. And until I see you again, hopefully in the next video, happy stitching and take care. Bye-bye.